Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for being here on this balmy Trenton day. I have the privilege of announcing and introducing somebody who's been a fighter for the middle class, somebody who has served his time in Washington better than any other congressman that I can think of. Frank Pallone from the 6th District. Frank?
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much. And let me first start out by thanking Jason, but beyond that, I really want to stress how proud I am to be here today endorsing Barbara Buono for governor. Some of you know that she is my constituent. I've known her for a long time in various capacities as a councilwoman and then eventually a state legislator and a state senator. But I really want to stress today, look, I believe very strongly she's going to be the nominee. I don't think there's any question about that anymore. And so it's not just a question of us uniting behind her, which I think will happen very quickly in the next few days, that everyone is going to, all Democrats are going to unite behind her. So that's important. But more important at this stage, I think, is the fact that we have to work hard to make sure that she's elected. And Democrats around the state, Democratic leaders, whether they're the county party chairs or there are other legislators, have to make sure that we're going to work hard for her to be elected next November. And I pledge my undying support for that, Barbara. And it's important for several reasons. First of all, because she deserves it. She has been an outstanding leader in the legislature for many years. You know, I don't have to go through the list. She was the first woman majority leader. She was the first woman who was the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, which I remember serving on when I was in the state legislature. Many of you probably don't remember. I was in the state senate for 5 years before I was a congressman. But beyond that, I've always seen her stick to her principles, be a progressive voice, and someone who works hard every day for her constituents. And that means for the middle class. That means for the people, the working mothers, the men and women who are working every day to try to make ends meet. It's the middle class that Barbara will stand up for. That's been her MO from day one. And it also has to do with her background. You know, coming from a working class background, some of you may know we weren't at law school at the same time, but we both went to Rutgers Law School in Camden. She had to work her way through college and law school. So this isn't just something that she stands for the middle class and the working men and women, but she herself has been in a position where she had to work her way through college as well as law school. Now, you know, I mentioned to her that we have just about 9 months before the election, and I count, I hope I'm not wrong, 281 days before the election. And Barbara, I'm going to go around the state. That's what I've got down here. I'm going to go around the state and make sure that we get everyone out, every Democrat and every independent, to support her candidacy. Now, look, I just wanted to mention a few things. You know, a big part of this election is going to be drawing the contrast between her and Governor Christie. And frankly, I think that's a very easy thing to do, but we also have to get the word out. And I just wanted to mention a few things that I think are so important in that respect. On Saturday, we were in Jersey City together at a rally that dealt with gun safety. And Barbara was very quick to point out major differences between her and Chris Christie. I mean, Chris Christie has essentially been avoiding the issue and saying he wants to have some sort of commission or task force that's going to be out there, you know, studying this thing. Barbara made it quite clear, as did everyone who was at that rally, there's nothing left to study here, okay? Enough is enough, as I think the cry went out that day. Enough is enough. We don't want any more kids murdered. We don't want any more moms murdered. You know, we have a plan. It's at the federal level. It's banning assault weapons. It's banning high-capacity clips. It's universal background checks. And Barbara is very clear about what needs to be done as opposed to her opponent. The same thing is true on so many other issues. Many of you know that I've been involved with, I was one of the drafters of the Affordable Care Act, the so-called health care reform. I'm very disappointed with the fact that Governor Christie has refused to set up the exchanges. You know, he's been very much backward on the issue of women's health and whether or not we're going to expand Medicaid. Barbara has been very much out front. I could draw a contrast. I mean, I'll mention one more, Bar. I want to introduce you, but the one more I have to say is with regard to collective bargaining. She's always been a champion of organized labor, believes strongly in collective bargaining. I don't think there's any question about where she stood. When many of these issues were being dealt with in the state legislature, she was always there for organized labor. And I could go through the list, but the contrast here between Barbara Buono, who's standing up for the middle class, who's out there for the working men and women, okay, who's pledged that, what the real issue here in this state is to create jobs. We have one of the highest unemployment rates in the country of any state. And there's no plan on the part of the Christie administration. She has a plan. I'm not going to go through it all. I just want to say that I really believe it's not even an issue anymore because she is going to be our nominee. But I felt from the very beginning that she would be our strongest nominee because of where she stands and how she's been out there dealing with the issues and drawing the contrast with Chris Christie. So I'm just very proud to be here today, Barbara. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do.
You. Okay. Thank you, Congressman. I am so honored to have Congressman Pallone's endorsement. He is the senior member of our congressional delegation, as you all know. Now, I met Frank first time in 1994, and I knew I liked him then. We shared a campaign headquarters in Edison. Frank was running for Congress, and I was my first term as a councilwoman in Metuchen, and I was running for the Assembly. The odds were stacked against me then, too, and I defied expectations. It means the world to me to have Frank's endorsement because he has always been in the forefront of standing up for middle-class taxpayers and standing up in the fight to preserve democratic values. Whether it's fighting for affordable health care, fighting for affordable higher education, preserving Social Security, Medicare, the list goes on and on, protecting our Jersey Shore, the environment. Frank has always been a leader, been a champion in support of the principles of the Democratic Party, and I am proud to have his endorsement. Frank understands, like I do, when we go across the state, we see that people are hurting. People are frustrated and burdened by the highest in the nation property taxes, by an unemployment rate that where 1 in 10 people are still out of work. Frank and I understand that people are hurting. They know that our unemployment rate is higher than the national average, consistently nearly 2 points above it. And the unemployment rate in New Jersey has been going up while the national unemployment rate has been heading in the other direction. In fact, the unemployment rate is even higher today in New Jersey than it was a year ago. So a lot of work needs to be done. Frank and I understand that people are bitter about a governor who has misplaced priorities, who's protecting millionaires, while at the same time increasing taxes on the working poor. We understand that people are angry about a governor who's made it harder for women to get health care by refusing literally tens of millions of dollars in federal funding for Planned Parenthood just to pander to the Republican right. So I am looking forward to working side by side with Congressman Pallone. I have to say that this press conference is, I'm very indebted to Congressman for endorsing me. We had planned this, I think on Friday had been planning it out, and then I just found right before I went in here that it looks as though 3 other Democratic counties, which is significant, Bergen County, Passaic County, and Hudson County, are coalescing behind my candidacy. I am grateful for that. I was always confident that the Democratic Party would come together. This is time for us to unite because we need to take it to the governor from now into November and take back the middle class for the State House. Because this campaign is not just about winning an election. It's about changing the direction of the state of New Jersey. So I thank you all for coming, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Senator, it really does look like today is the day that you pretty much become the de facto Democratic nominee. But why do you think it took this long for them to get around to doing this?
Well, I haven't even formally announced my candidacy. I did an announcement on December 11th, and that was to comply with the law, to open a bank account, to start raising money. And we've been on track. We look like we're approaching matching funds, which is significant. We've been hiring staff. We've been pulling together our framework of the campaign. I haven't even announced. I'm announcing formally, and you may or may not know this, but I'll use this opportunity to let you know, if you don't already, that I will be doing a formal announcement this Saturday, the 2nd of February in New Brunswick at the high school, and I'd love to see you all there. Michael.
Barbara, it's just been reported that the governor is conditionally vetoing the minimum wage bill today, sending it back to the legislature with his own recommendations. I wonder how you feel about it.
Well, it's a mixed bag. I will tell you this, that this governor's policies, you can be sure with this governor that he's going to protect the very wealthy over the middle class. I mean, we need a living wage in the state of New Jersey. We are one of the highest expense states to live in and raise a family, and that this governor is refusing to sign the minimum wage and include the escalator on an annual basis, I think is just not shocking. It's expected, but it's a sad day for the middle class.
Senator, when you're going around the state, people are angry and bitter toward this governor, but polls don't necessarily bear that out. I mean, this guy's got over 50% approval ratings among Democrats. I mean, how do you approach that? How do you begin to address it?
I don't care about polls. It's January. I don't pay attention to them. And the election's in November, and you don't need a poll to tell you that New Jersey. Polls aren't going to create the jobs that we need to pull us out of this economic, the stalled economy that we're facing here in New Jersey. You don't need a poll to tell you that people in New Jersey are, just struggling under the crushing burden of property taxes.
Just to sort of follow up on that, I mean, is the campaign basically going to be about sort of rolling the clock back and reminding voters of what their condition was on October 28th? Do you know what I mean? Is that going to be the key for you? Is that what you're going to try to do?
The key, what did you say? I didn't hear the first part.
When you run your campaign, is it basically going to be all about winding the clock back? And how do you do that to remind people of conditions the day before Sandy?
No, the campaign is going to be about this governor's record and the fact that he has no plan to pull this economy out of the stalled economy out of the position we've been in since he's been in office. This governor has no plan to create jobs. New Jersey, I think you're alluding to Sandy when you said roll back the clock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, the governor says that Sandy erased the blackboard, but it hasn't erased the fact that before Sandy hit, we had, we were hemorrhaging good-paying jobs to other states. Even before Sandy came, I had people coming into my Senate office with law degrees applying for entry-level clerical positions. So we cannot be in denial about, the governor may not want to talk about the issues that were facing New Jersey before the storm hit, like how New Jersey stacks up against other states in terms of economic competitiveness. But you can't solve our problems by being in denial. The governor knows, he knows his way around the microphone, and choreographed the town hall meetings and YouTube videos aren't going to, pull New Jersey out of the economic doldrums that we are in. It's not going to make higher education affordable. That's out of reach for so many.
I heard your response about how you had one of the reasons why the party, you mentioned that you hadn't had time to set up a formal campaign. But the reality is everybody in the political community were waiting on Cory Booker, and then they were waiting on Dick Cody, and then there was even Steve Sweeney, Bill Pascrell. It's kind of got this feeling that you are the default candidate, the one, or, that there was a sort of this anybody but Barbara movement in the party, and that you're the first person who declared and the last person standing.
You're absolutely right. I was the first person who declared.
How do you feel about that sense that the party was really doing everything it could to not coalesce around you?
Well, let me say this. First, I was the first person to declare, and I declared when I didn't know who was in or who was out, because this fight is too important to focus on what's the political considerations that are going on in the party. That said, I may have ruffled some feathers in the past. I don't know that that's a bad thing, but this isn't. We're never going to agree on everything in any party. And this campaign is about what we agree on. And what we agree on is that somebody's got to turn this state around to stand up for the middle class and the working poor, who have been hurt by this governor's policies and left behind. That's what this campaign is about. Thank you.